Every farm has a story. When it comes to dairy farming, these stories are often only heard by the animals raised, the land stewarded, and the family that makes it all possible. Join me, Dairy Gal Val, as I interview individuals from across the dairy industry, both within the United States and across the globe, discussing topics like farm management, the food industry, ag business and technology, and most importantly, their farm story. This is the Dairy Hour Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Dairy Hour Podcast, everybody. I am your host, Dairy Gal Val, and I'm here with Isabel Mullen from Maine, which you might not think of Maine as having many dairy farms, but we do have proof here with Isabel. Welcome, Isabel. How are you?
Good. Thanks so much for having me, Val. Yes, I'm very proud to be here representing Maine dairy farmers. At last count, I think there are 158 farms left. So,
That's more than I would have guessed had I had to guess. So that's really exciting.
yeah.
So, Isabel, do you want to start by telling us a little bit about your farm that you're on, your day-to-day activities on the farm and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I farm with my uncle and cousin in Kittery, Maine. So it's the far southern tip of the state if you're looking at a map. Our farm has about 85 milking cows. That varies a little bit depending on the time of year. Um, And it was started in 1947 by my grandparents. And we are part of the Agrimark Co-op. So we are proud Cabot farmers and uh, have been since I can remember. Um, let's see, any other big details? I'm kind of the third generation here in the farm, although it's kind of weird because while I'm third generation, I also feel like this new farmer. So sometimes I feel like I'm in this in-between space where I can't really claim either one or the other. But yeah, it's really great to be back at the farm. I've been here for a little over a year now.
Good to hear. Now, do you guys milk in a tie stall, parlor?
Yeah, we milk in a tie stall barn. It's actually the original barn my grandfather built when my grandparents moved here. They've expanded on it twice, and we are often thinking about what the future might hold for that space or our milking systems because it's just a little bit inefficient. As you know, parlors are definitely considered a more efficient milking method, and now the robots even add on top of that. So we'll see what the next years bring.
Yeah, and definitely something to consider with future generations coming back to the farm, which is
Yeah.
great that there is a next generation interested in farming because unfortunately, that's not a reality for some farms, probably especially in Maine. So that is really exciting that you guys are getting to start doing some research and planning on what the future is going to bring for your farm.
Yeah.
So, what bring us through a day in the life of Isabel on the farm?
As you know, Val, I'm sure, no day on the farm looks the same. I think the beauty in dairy farming is that you're going every single day and there's some things that have to get done every single day. But in between, it's something different every day as well. So I usually get here around 8 a.m., 8:30 a.m. if I'm feeling a little slow in the morning. And my day starts with cleaning out our milking barn, kind of doing some of the basic chores. And then the afternoon can be any kind of mix of things, whether that's out in the field spreading manure, cleaning out barns with some of our machinery, greasing equipment, researching and picking out bulls to breed our cows too. The list really varies, and I think that's why I love it so much, is because on a small farm, you really have to be able to do everything. And watching and learning from my uncles, especially fascinating too, since he's been doing it his whole life. He can kind of do jobs you would think you'd have to hire someone for, which is really cool.
Yeah, and so you're on the farm with your uncle, and then who else is on the farm? Because it is a fairly smaller farm, so I'm guessing it's
Yeah.
all family.
Yep. We are all family operation. My uncle, and then his youngest, he has three, his youngest son, Brian, works with us as well. They are both full time. I'm here 5 days a week, occasionally more. And then we have a few local girls who come, do some chores here and there. But mostly it's just the three of us getting all the stuff done.
What's your favorite chore?
Oh, I like feeding the calves. I think that's where I started, as a little kid was that was my first responsibility. And I think that still brings me back to that initial spark I had with dairy farming. Plus the calves are just so cute.
Definitely. So my cousin Amanda, she grew up, you know, on the farm with me. And
Yeah.
we were actually just reminiscing yesterday about how when we were kids, we'd play vet. And we had this little three-wheeled golf cart, and it was painted like a John Deere Gator. And I think it even maybe had like it said Gator on it. But we were actually just reminiscing. We'd drive around the farm and we'd pretend like I was the vet and she was my assistant. And we had like clipboard, thermometers, halters, and we'd go and we'd like do checkups on the calves. And those poor
Yeah.
calves, they probably saw us coming and they're like, not these kids again. I mean, we were probably like, 8, 9, 10 years old, and
Oh
we were just,
yeah.
but you learn a lot doing that, and it's just a lot of fun, and it's those fun memories of growing up on the farm that really, you cherish as you grow older. And sometimes farming is more of a unfortunate reality on some days, and some days it's a lot of fun, but it's always good to have those memories of childhood when you didn't really have the responsibilities of day to day and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think we both did 4-H. I did 4-H starting at 9, but I got my first calf at my house when I was 8, like before I was old enough to actually join 4-H. And so I lived in a community that was not known for its agriculture, and I had a calf in the backyard, um, in this old what had been a book swap, so like kind of like a mini library at our dump. People would bring the old books that they didn't want, and you could like exchange it for other books. And for whatever reason, they got rid of this building, and that became our calf shed. So our little calf grew up there, and I think that's why that's one of my favorite chores is just getting to spend time with them. Is it definitely brings me back to my roots and um, the initial learning. And I think I remember listening to your intro piece. I didn't know that you had wanted to be a large animal vet. I was the same way as a little kid. That had been my first dream. Um, and yeah, it was just a good experience with 4-H, and that just the memories are kind of what I think builds the initial love. And on those hard days, you're absolutely right. It's what kind of keeps you going.
It really is. So I have to make a mention of this just because I know you, and you said you get to the farm around 8:30 in the morning,
Yeah.
and you have a little bit of a trek in, if I'm not mistaken.
I drive an hour each way to the farm. Yep.
That just blows my mind. I
Yeah.
cannot imagine commuting, to any job an hour one way, but especially to be an hour away from the farm is just crazy to me.
Yeah.
I guess not having been more than a mile away from our farm my whole life, that's just, absolutely mind blowing.
Yeah.
So you also have something fun, and I don't know if you're going to be mad at me for mentioning this. Do you want to talk a little bit about where you live?
Sure. Oh no, I'm not mad at all. I love where I live. I feel like it's part of what makes me unique, which as an adult I can appreciate. I think as a teenager I would have felt really awkward. But I live in a tiny house on wheels. It's off grid, so I've got some solar panels and I have a 35-gallon water tank that about once a week I fill up. And yeah, so every day after farming I go home to that little space. Which while I would love to be here full time because there's just something about being able to go out and check on the animals whenever you want, or if someone's calving, not having to worry about, okay, do I leave and think she's going to be fine, or should I stay? And then I have an hour drive home at 9 p.m. at night. But it's nice to have that space and escape. And it's, kind of tucked away in the woods. And so it's really quiet and peaceful, which is a nice balance for the kind of the chaos and busyness of farming.
Definitely. Now, what made you decide to be in a tiny house? Like, I we don't have a very big house here, and as a family of five, like I run out of space, and I'm just like, I have no
Yeah.
storage and too much stuff, and I'm just like, when I think about you having a tiny house, I'm like, just don't know how she does it, especially
Yeah.
with dogs. Like,
Yeah, it's a challenge. I can tell you that the process of moving into the house when I was getting rid of kind of like paring down all of my possessions, that was really stressful. And I had I'm 35 now. This was a couple of years ago. I had a lot of clothes and things from high school still. So getting rid of stuff, it was just a big process. But the reason I moved into the tiny house was during the pandemic, I realized that While I love my old job, which I haven't mentioned, I was formerly in politics and working with our state legislature, specifically our Senate Majority Office, and 22 state senators, and all of their staff. But while I loved that and I loved what I got to do, um, it was taking a toll. I was feeling myself kind of moving back towards farming. It started with, as you probably know, a couple goats, and then a couple ducks, and it kind of just I moved to a friend's farm, which is where I am now in a rental space. And that was only going to be temporary because she was going to be renting it out a few months after I got there, and I knew I needed another space. And so I sold my house that was more in a suburban urban area, and used the proceeds to buy the tiny house. I was really lucky to find it. And I have actually, this is my third summer in the space. So I never really thought I was going to be there quite that long. I thought it was going to be till I figure out what's next, but it's worked for me, as a single person. I think if I had kids, there's no way I could do it. Or even a partner, with I'm a pretty small human, so it works out, but I can't imagine two people trying to live in that space. Yeah.
And if you get mad at your area, you just hook up a truck and away you go.
Exactly. The options are endless.
So you just started talking a little bit about like what you used to do in your quote unquote old life. Do you want
Yeah.
to kind of take us back to the beginning and, tell the story of how you got to where you are?
Yeah, so I apologize in advance. This story can get long just because it took so many turns. So I'll
We've
try to
got all
keep it
day.
concise as possible. I appreciate that. So as I mentioned earlier, I was in 4-H as a kid, in a non-large animal ag area. So there was another local kind of hobby farm, and they wanted to bring one of their young calves in a parade, but needed to be socialized. And none of the people farming there really had, it was more of a horse farm, and none of them were really used to working with animals. So they called me up. I spent like afternoons after school, just hanging out with this calf, getting it ready to walk in a parade, which looking back is like the best job ever. But that kind of transitioned me away from dairy and into horses, because the way I got kind of compensated was free horseback riding lessons. And so I met some really great girlfriends. And so I spent a lot of time doing that. And in high school, um, because I'd kind of moved away from cows, and dairy farming, it was more focused on sports and everything kind of local. Um, I was going on that journey everyone does for figuring out where their future is, and had a high school teacher, who taught gov and history, um, and economics courses, and I loved him. So I took every course he took or taught, excuse me. Um, and when it came time to apply for colleges, he was originally from Ohio and recommended these schools out there. And so I ended up studying political science and economics, after loving his courses, and kind of followed that trajectory. So after graduating from undergrad, moved back to Maine, and as quickly as I could, got myself into my congresswoman's office, working there part time.
So if we can pause for one
Yeah,
second, if we went back to ninth or eighth or ninth grade, Isabel, what
yeah.
did you want to be when you grew up?
Uh, Eighth or ninth grade. That was probably this like transition period. At that point, I probably still wanted to be a large animal vet. Like I applied to some undergrad schools because of their pre-vet programs.
Okay.
Um, and I think it was just a fluke of like who gave me more financial aid money as to which trajectory I took at that point. Looking back, I wish I'd paused a little bit more and thought more about what I wanted to do. But I'm super grateful for the experiences I've had. Like if I had not worked in Maine politics, and law for 10 years before coming to the farm, I think I would just not have the perspective I have, and what the policy landscape looks for farming. Our experience down in
Definitely.
DC that we got to go on. So yeah, I think a long and winding road. Went to law school, was a practicing attorney for 6 years, and then just kind of left, and came back to the farm full time, in May of last year. So yeah, that is.
So what kind of things happened that made you say, "Hey, I'm in the wrong career. I need to go back to my roots. I want to go back to the farm." Like what, did just one day you wake up and be like, I don't think I want to do this. I think I'm just going to go be a farmer. Like, so
Uh,
what made you, what's your defining moment?
I actually don't know that there's a defining moment. I think that there's been a part of me that's always loved farming. Even as I look back at journal entries from the time that I was like fully invested in my legal and policy career, there's still mentions of wanting to farm, or missing the farm, or things like that. I remember when I was at a big law firm in Maine working as an associate attorney, I was going to tour um, local folks will know Wolfsteck's Farm, which had a dairy grazing apprenticeship program to kind of see if I wanted to do that. Um, and that was, I spent 3.5 years after that time at the State House. Um, and still during that time was finding ways I could spend time on farms in my free time. Um, and when I moved to my friend's farm back at the end of 2020, I realized that like every lunch break I was going out to check on like the sheep. Are they lambing? Like if they're lambing, can I help with them? Or if it's like as soon as the clock hit 5 o'clock on a slow day, I would step outside to go check on the animals. It just felt natural. Um, and that's when I really started looking in earnest for ways to get back into dairy farming full time. And dairy farming just happened to be that my family farm needed help around the same time that I was ready to make that transition.
Funny how things work out.
Absolutely.
It really
Yeah.
is.
Fate.
It is fascinating. So you also have a presence on social media.
I do.
Shout out your handle.
I'm on Instagram at Isabel on the farm. I've not been very active recently just because things have been so busy. But tomorrow I'm doing a quick, or I should say June 27th. I'm not sure when this is being posted. Uh, like takeover for our Drink Maine Milk, which is our Maine Dairy Promotion Board's Instagram, which will be really fun. Just giving insight into the day in the life here in our farm.
Yep. So this will air the day after that you do
Okay.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have jumped right into being involved. What made you get involved on your Instagram account? I guess we'll start with that.
Yeah, I think because so much of my personal community, my immediate family, my friends, where I grew up, they are not involved on a day-to-day basis in farming, and for a lot of them, it's kind of a foreign thing, and so it was a cool way to share after the transition what I was doing in a way that kind of engaged them and helped them learn about why I loved it so much, and that's been really fun. And then more recently, it's been a way to connect with other farmers, which has been awesome because uh, a lot of times you can feel isolated or on your own farm, and it's a cool way to see what other people are doing and learn, and just share the thing we love. So yeah.
Definitely. Now, does your immediate family, do they understand, like, how understanding are they? I see you laughing. How
Um,
understanding are they of this farming thing that you've decided to kind of ditch
yeah.
your law degree and be like, oh, I'm a dairy farmer now?
So I'm very grateful that both of my parents recognize that from a young age, dairy farming was something I was super passionate about. Like the community I grew up in, it was a little crazy to bring a calf to my neighborhood. Like they had to get permission from my neighbors for like, zoning or reasons or whatever to like have a calf there. And so they know that it's really something that's speaks to my soul. At the same time, I'm laughing because they are constantly frustrated with how little I see them now that I'm doing this, or how much time I'm able to spend with them on holidays, things like that. And I think they know what farming requires, and they're as understanding as they can be, but they're definitely uh, family and some friends wish they could spend more time with me, which just, means they love me. So I can't be upset about that.
Yeah, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
It could be like, ah, you should work some more. Like, go on.
Yeah. No, they're pretty supportive. So I'm happy.
Good. And so you've also not just dove back into the farm, but you've dove back into a lot of different farm organizations. Personally, I know Isabel through the Agrimark Young Cooperator Program. I've been really lucky to have gotten to meet her there and gotten the opportunity to do a couple trips with Isabel as well. So do you want to talk a little bit more about your involvement in outside ag activities?
Yeah, I'd love to. But first, I just want to say thank you because I remember like very early on in my time coming back to the farm, you're just super welcoming and there to share information. And I think it's people like you, and in Maine specifically, like Jenny Tilton Flood, who are just really awesome at being supportive and mentoring and welcoming new faces. And so I think the more people there are like that, the better it is for new farmers or people who are coming back to it. It just definitely made me feel welcome and like I could say I'm interested or I want to do these things. Um, in Maine, as you know,
Oh,
there's
you're
only 100.
welcome.
Yeah, thank you. In Maine, there are only 158 farms, as I mentioned, or at least as of a couple months ago. That could have decreased by now, but uh, so it's easy to get involved, right? Like there's only so many faces in the room, and there's so many things that need to get done. So people just kind of pick, like, oh, like you're raising your hand for one thing, like you want to do this too. So um, I think it's a small pond, and so it's just easy to, if you have an interest in something, I think get engaged. I think a lot of it is just showing up, and if you show up, and do the work, then people are happy to have you participate. So I remember coming to the YC conference last summer and being interested in the National Milk Producers Young Cooperators program, and you and others within Cabot Rose, our staff support, just really kind of offering information and recruiting. And I felt a little silly only being back at the farm for a few months saying, yeah, I want to do this. But I'm really grateful that I did. It's been a wonderful experience. And I've learned so much more than I would have if I just stayed at the farm and didn't seek out these opportunities. So it's just for me a way, I think, to build my knowledge and experience, but also feel like I'm giving back in some ways too. So
Definitely. And, just being involved is such an important thing. And I mean, you're still considered a young farmer. And that right there is just, it's those young farmers that are willing to go above and beyond, be involved, educate themselves so that they can, in fact, be the future of the dairy industry. That's so important. So kudos to you for showing up and actually being involved and not just being someone who's like, I'm a farmer, I'm a hermit, I'm going to stay on my farm, do nothing extra, just be on the farm. Farming's busy enough.
yeah,
Those that know me know that I just like to add hours and minutes into the day, and I just am like, oh yeah, sure, I'd love to do that. Oh wait, do that? Okay, yeah.
yeah,
But sometimes it's that can do, say yes attitude that gets you into places where you never expected to be.
yeah,
And it also sets you up for the future, and just setting up the future of the dairy industry. Times are changing so fast that making sure that we're on top of things, keeping our just keeping a grasp on what's going on within the industry is so important. Being a voice. Isabel, less than a month ago, was down in Washington, D.C. at the National Milk Fly In with me. And we got to go around and talk to our representatives about the importance of making sure that we have a place in our home state to keep dairying into the future, because once you lose those farms, you're not getting them back. And it's so important to make sure that those that are not immediately connected to agriculture realize the importance of making sure that those farms have longevity, and making sure that those generations want to come back to the farm, want to be a part, want to provide that nutritious, local, and safe food for the future, because the communities need that local, safe product. And that's just so important. And being involved and showing up and having your voice heard, it's a huge, huge, huge thing that's needed.
yeah,
And more young people like you, Isabel, should be out there doing it. So kudos to
yeah.
you as well.
Oh, but I mean, you've mentioned in this conversation, it's challenging, right? There are only so many hours in the day, and somehow you invent more minutes, which is amazing. But for me, I'm really lucky because my uncle, when he was growing up, did the YC program. I think back then it was so popular you could only do it for like 2 years or something like that, which is just wild to think of the difference. And but because he did that experience, he appreciates the value that it has, and so he's been really supportive and encouraging that, and then other opportunities. And I recognize that it makes their life more difficult, right? If I'm doing these things, I'm not able to help out on the farm those days, um, and I try to make up for it where I can, but I recognize that it's a challenge for other young farmers. So I think, to anyone who's listening to this, if it's a challenge for you, talk to Val, talk to me, talk to whoever's involved in your dairy organization about how you can balance those things, because there are definitely ways to make it happen. And it's important.
110% agree.
Yeah.
You have to make the time to grow to be that future. So, any other tidbits about your life that you want to make sure that is well known?
It's not necessarily about my life, but I think the one thing I'd love to share is just for me, farming is like a matrilineal thing. Like my great grandmother immigrated here from Sweden in the 1920s with my and married my great great grandfather, or excuse me, great grandfather, here. And they built a small farm down the road from where we are now. And my great grandfather passed away at a pretty young age, and she ran that what might be considered now like a homestead with cows and farm in the farm herself for many years as a single mom in a time where that really wasn't heard of. And then my grandmother, um, her condition for marrying my grandfather was that he would be a dairy farmer and not do his dream of med school. So he went to ag school instead, and they rented a farm in Massachusetts for a few years before starting this place. And so for me, it's just really cool to see more and more women involved in dairy farming and in leadership roles within dairy farming. And so I just think it's for me a really personal thing to see these strong women farm figures. And it's also great to be in these spaces and see those faces too in a real way today. So that's just a personal anecdote and
That's a really
reflection.
neat little story, though. I like that a lot.
Thank you.
I
Yeah. And
don't
I
think
think,
you've ever shared that one with me.
yeah, I mean, I think that history even goes back to Sweden too, but that gets a little harder to trace. And I have been to a family farm over there, my grandfather's side, but yeah, it's just really been powerful. And again, on those hard days, it's those memories or those kind of um, family stories that really keep you motivated. And if they could do it, I certainly can do it. So
You've
yeah,
got this. You're doing a fantastic job.
thanks, Val.
So, I want to take a minute to do some rapid fun fire questions. This is my favorite part
I
because I
can't
just
wait.
love putting people on the spot and just asking them these things.
Yeah.
Um, so, as a fellow Agrimark Cabot farmer,
Yes.
what is your go-to Cabot product?
Oh gosh, it's got to be the 3-year age cheddar. It's just so good.
I mean, you can't go wrong with any of the choices, but that's a pretty solid one, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the black wax label, it just feel a little special. Yeah,
Yes,
definitely.
that's how you get bougie with your cheese. Go for
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
real good aged cheddar.
A treat yourself moment.
So June is National Dairy Month. If you don't know already, we like to celebrate June
Yeah.
National Dairy Month. How about your go-to just dairy product of choice?
Ice cream, 100%.
Oh, you speak
I
my
worked on a lot of
language.
farms growing up, but one of my other favorite jobs was serving ice cream at an ice cream store, and I ate my fair share, and I continue to do so. So it's just, especially this time of year, can't beat it.
Yes, with our food trucks, I if we were to have ice cream in the food trucks, I would weigh 1,000,000 pounds because I cannot turn ice cream down. What's your favorite
No.
flavor?
Chocolate. It's just the simple, basic Haagen-Dazs chocolate is my favorite.
I'm a soft ice cream girl. I mean, I love hard ice cream. There's actually a farm that makes their own ice cream not too far from me, and they make a lemon hard ice
Ooh,
cream.
that
It's called
sounds really
Lemon
good.
Dream, like
Yum.
a creamy lemon. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. And I love all things lemon.
Yeah.
Um, so that's a go-to when you're in our area. I'll have to
All
bring it
right.
because it's
Yeah, I'll have to
amazing.
find it.
Um, Favorite vacation spot?
Oh, that's a great question. So down East Maine, Washington County, Maine, is kind of this known for its rugged coastline. It's kind of up past Acadia. We used to spend a lot of time there growing up. And maybe this is where my tiny home comes from. We had a kind of off-grid cabin. We do Thanksgiving in every year, cook our turkey in a wood stove, cook our fixings on the wood stove. And so I think that's just a spot that'll always be magical for me, the coastline and the fog and, things that might not be traditionally beautiful, but just are so peaceful.
Okay, you're going on vacation, relaxing or adventurous?
A year and a half ago, I would have said adventurous. Did, I think my last big trip was to Big Bend National Park in Texas with lots of hiking and camping and kind of backwoods type things. But now I might go for more relaxing. I could see myself sitting on a beach with a book and hanging out for a little bit. I wouldn't mind a break.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
It's funny how farming changes you, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so what is your favorite cut of beef?
Uh, yeah, I know this is rapid fire. I'm spending too much time thinking. It's a tenderloin. Yeah, the classic.
On the grill or in a pan?
Oh, grill.
Grill.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, I'm really putting you on the spot over here.
I know. It's hard to choose. There's so many good ones.
If you could, let's see. So you live in Maine. There's 4 seasons in Maine. What's your favorite season?
I am a summer girl. My birthday's in August. I think that's the best time of year. But I also couldn't live anywhere that didn't have all of the seasons. They're all necessary to appreciate summer the most.
I can agree with you there. The fall leaves are pretty, but I do, minus the humidity, I do enjoy summer because I like to be warm. I
Yeah.
absolutely hate the cold. I don't know why I live in New York, but here we are. We suck it up. We get through.
Yeah, the
I
winters
live
can
where
be
the
brutal
air
for
hurts
sure.
my face because there's not huge snakes. I mean, that could be quite a,
It's a trade-off. Yeah.
yes, definitely a trade off. So, you can go, let's see, you can go to any foreign country and work on a farm for, 2 weeks. Where are you going?
I would probably go back to the family's farm in Sweden. That I remember just as a little kid, like sleeping in the hayloft, and it's not really a commercial operation. They have like a few beef animals and whatnot, but just the haying experience and whatnot. I'd probably go back there. Yeah.
Very cool. And so you were only in Sweden when you were a young kid,
I
or
was last there at 16.
okay.
Yep. So my mom and sister have been back more recently, so I need to get over there at some point and visit them again.
Yes. And I guess last question. You're a coffee drinker?
Oh yes.
Iced or hot?
I do both. Hot in the mornings. If it's a hot day, I'll do ice in the afternoon. But yeah,
I'm gonna go with great minds think alike on that one, especially during the summer. That's exactly what I do. I like start with my hot coffee and then I switch over to iced coffee.
yeah.
And
There's
if it's
just something
cold, then
about
it's
that.
hot and hot and
Yeah.
more hot coffee.
Yeah,
That's how I get so much done. You just gotta caffeinate.
exactly. It's been a problem I've had since I was 16, so it's not going to stop anytime soon.
Yes. And I had to give it up once when I was pregnant because I just could not stomach it, and it was the worst.
I feel like that would probably make me more sick than giving it up or than drinking it. Yeah, but
Yeah, we toughed it out. We're here. We lived,
yes.
so we're doing good. So Isabel, do you want to give one last shout out to where people can find you on social media?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram at Isabel on the Farm. I have a personal Facebook page, just Isabel Mullen, but I don't share as much farming content there. So Instagram is just kind of my space. I like the pictures, I like the videos, and yeah,
And Isabel is spelled Isabel,
that's
just for those of
correct.
you that are actually searching for her, um, so that you're not sitting there trying to figure out how to spell it. That is how
Yeah,
you spell it. And
there you go.
she's really fun to follow. So make sure you go ahead and give her a follow. Also, speaking of following, make sure you're following me, Dairy Gal Val, on social media, all the different platforms. And a reminder, share this podcast with your friends, leave a review, tag me on social media, let me know what you think. And I want to thank you again, Isabel. I really appreciate you coming on. It's awesome to talk to such a great, well-spoken person from the wonderful state of Maine, where who knew there was dairy farms in Maine, right? And
Yeah, can't
I
compete with Vermont.
yes, or New York,
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but so thank you so much for coming on, Isabel. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you next Wednesday. Thanks,
Thanks so
everyone.
much, Val.
Thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. Please be sure to subscribe to be notified of future episodes and leave a review. You can find me on most social media platforms at Dairy Gal Val or online at dairygalval.com. Thank you so much for coming to the Dairy Hour.